You're near the front of the boarding line, backpack on one shoulder, roller bag in the other hand, walking through an airport you've flown out of a dozen times before. Your zone gets called. You step up to the jet bridge door, and the gate agent doesn't even glance at your roller bag. She points at your backpack and says, "That one, set it in here for me." There's a metal frame built into the podium, shaped like the space under an airplane seat. Your backpack goes in at an angle. It doesn't sit flat. The agent shakes her head, slaps a tag on the strap, and now your laptop and your charger are heading into the belly of the plane while you walk to your seat empty-handed. You didn't do anything wrong exactly. You just didn't know the rules changed under you. And in 2026, that's happening to more travelers than ever, not because airports invented new restrictions, but because the old ones are finally being enforced the way they were written all along. This script breaks down exactly what's different about flying with a carry-on bag in the second half of 2026. Size and weight checks, the personal item crackdown, what's really happening with liquids now that scanners have changed, the battery rule that can get an item thrown in the trash in front of you, and one overlooked checkpoint detail that has nothing to do with your bag but can still keep you off your flight. By the end, you'll know exactly what to fix before you leave the house. Why 2026 feels so much stricter. Here's the part that surprises people. Almost none of the rules below are new. The 22-inch carry-on limit has existed for years. The lithium battery restrictions go back the better part of a decade. The 311 liquid rule is old enough that some travelers don't remember life before it. What changed is enforcement, and enforcement changed because of math. Planes are flying fuller in 2026 than at almost any point in the last 20 years. Check bag fees have become a major airline revenue line, which pushes more passengers to bring everything on board instead. Add faster gate turnarounds and bins that fill up before half the plane has boarded, and airlines suddenly have a financial reason to start measuring bags they used to wave through. So they installed hardware. Gate podiums now come with built-in sizing frames and at a growing number of airports, scales hidden in the counter itself. Agents aren't guessing anymore, they're reading a number off a screen and a number doesn't negotiate. That shift from the agent's judgment to the machine's measurement is the real story of 2026, and it's why bags that flew fine last year are getting pulled this year. The size rule you thought you already knew. Start with the dimension that trips up the most people, 22 by 14 by 9 inches. That's the carry-on ceiling used by American, Delta, United, JetBlue, and Alaska. And it includes everything attached to the bag: the wheels, the telescoping handle, the side pockets, the bumper guards on the corners. Southwest gives a little more room, allowing bags up to roughly 24 by 16 by 10 inches, which is one reason their carry-on policy gets recommended so often by frequent flyers who travel with a slightly bulkier suitcase. Here's where people get caught. They measure the bag empty in the store before the zippers strain. Then they pack it for a real trip, full clothing, a jacket stuffed into the side pocket, an expansion zipper unzipped halfway just to get the lid closed, and the bag is now a different shape than the tag promised. Wheels that retract flat in the showroom stick out half an inch once the bag is loaded and dragged across 3 different floors. None of that shows up until a gate agent slides your bag into a frame that doesn't care how convincing your argument is. And the financial hit isn't trivial anymore. Depending on the airline and the route, a last-minute gate check now runs anywhere from around $35 on the low end to well over $100 on routes flown by carriers that treat oversized bags as a premium service failure. Budget airlines in particular have leaned into this. An oversized carry-on at the gate can cost more than checking the same bag online would have cost the night before. The fix is almost insultingly simple, which is exactly why people skip it. Buy a cheap tape measure, or use the one on your phone's measuring app, and measure your packed bag, fully loaded, zippers closed, wheels included, the week before your trip, not the morning of. If you're within an inch of your airline's limit, that's not a margin, that's a warning. Either downsize the bag or accept that you're rolling the dice every time you fly it. The weight check. Nobody budgeted for. Size gets all the attention, but weight is quietly becoming its own trap, especially the moment your trip involves an international leg. Most US domestic carriers still don't post a hard carry-on weight limit, but plenty of international and budget airlines already cap your cabin bag somewhere between 15 and 22 pounds. The sneaky part is where the weigh-in happens. Self-service check-in kiosks at a growing number of airports have a built-in scale in the base, and while you're tagging a checked bag or printing a boarding pass, your carry-on can get weighed automatically without you ever asking for it. If you're over the limit on a carrier that enforces it, you'll know before you've even cleared security, repacking in the middle of a check-in hall instead of quietly at home. A useful gut check, If you need 2 hands and a small grunt to lift your bag into an overhead bin, you're probably pushing into territory that'll cause you trouble somewhere on your itinerary, even if this particular flight doesn't care. Frequent international travelers swear by a simple filter while packing. If you genuinely won't use an item at least 3 times on the trip, it doesn't belong in the carry-on. Wear your heaviest shoes onto the plane instead of packing them. Move your charger brick and your paperback into your personal item, where weight checks are almost never enforced. None of this is glamorous advice, but it's the difference between a calm boarding process and an awkward shuffle at the gate. Your personal item isn't a loophole anymore. For years, the personal item was the unofficial second carry-on, a tote, a duffel, a backpack that looked suspiciously close to full size, all worn at once like a costume so nobody could say anything. In 2026, that costume is getting called out far more often. The actual standard most carriers enforce now sits around 17 by 10 by 9 inches, small enough to genuinely disappear under the seat in front of you, not fits if I push my feet to the side disappear. Budget airlines have made this rule matter even more because, for a lot of their fare classes, the personal item is the only free bag you get, which is exactly why you'll see passengers in the boarding line cramming a week's worth of clothing into a backpack that's bulging at the seams. Agents have caught on, and a backpack that clearly belongs in the overhead bin is now a common target for the same gate check treatment your roller bag gets. There's good news buried in here though. Most airlines still don't count certain things against your personal item allowance: a jacket worn rather than packed, an umbrella, duty-free purchases made after the security checkpoint, and assistive devices like a cane or a folded wheelchair. That means you can legitimately carry more than your one bag limit suggests, as long as you're strategic about what's worn versus what's zipped inside a bag. The mental shift worth making is this: treat your personal item as the bag that survives no matter what happens to your roller bag. If your carry-on gets gate checked because the bin filled up, you don't want your laptop, your passport, your medication, and your phone charger disappearing into the cargo hold with it. Keep the irreplaceable stuff under your seat, not over your head, and a forced gate check turns into a minor inconvenience instead of a real problem. Liquids, gels, and the scanner that changes everything. Sometimes. If there's one rule everybody assumes has finally been relaxed, it's the liquid limit. And the honest answer for July 2026 is not exactly, but also kind of, depending entirely on which airport you happen to be standing in. The federal 311 standard hasn't moved. Containers of liquids, gels, pastes, and aerosols still need to be 3.4 ounces or smaller, all fitting inside one clear, quart-sized bag. What has changed is the hardware behind the checkpoint. By early 2026, the newer CT scanners, the ones that build a rotating 3D image of your bag instead of a flat X-ray, were already running at more than 90% of the country's busiest hubs, places like Atlanta, Los Angeles, JFK, and O'Hare. At many of those checkpoints, especially in TSA pre-check lanes, the scanner can see through your bag clearly enough that you no longer have to physically remove your liquids pouch or your laptop at all. That's a genuinely nice change. It's also a trap if you assume it's universal. Plenty of standard lanes and plenty of smaller regional airports are still working with older equipment, which means the old routine, bag out, liquids out, laptop out, is still very much alive there. Fly out of a major hub on the way out and connect through a smaller airport on the way home, and it's easy to get confused about which version of the rule applies to you in that exact moment. The smart move is to pack as if you're always going through the strict lane, because eventually you will be. Keep every liquid, gel, and cream under the 3.4 ounce threshold in one easy-to-grab pouch near the top of your bag, even if your departure airport doesn't ask you to take it out. And lean harder into solids where you can bar shampoo, bar conditioner, solid deodorant, solid perfume, even solid dish soap if you're the type who does laundry on the road. None of those count toward your liquid limit at all, which means the CT scanner rollout becomes irrelevant to you specifically. One more thing worth knowing: the foods that get flagged most often aren't exotic. Peanut butter, hummus, and jam are the most consistently confiscated items at checkpoints, simply because travelers don't think of them as liquids. If you can spread it with a knife, security treats it like a gel, full-size jar and all, and it's getting left behind in the bin at the checkpoint, not coming home with you. Batteries. The word that can end a trip before it starts. If you only remember one section of this script, make it this one, because batteries are the single fastest way to lose an expensive item at security in 2026, and the rules have actually gotten more specific this year, not less. The foundational rule hasn't changed. Any spare lithium battery, whether it's a standalone power bank or a loose camera battery, belongs in your carry-on and never in a checked bag. If your roller bag gets pulled for a gate check at the last second, you're expected to dig out any loose batteries and carry them into the cabin yourself before that bag disappears down the belt. Skip that step and you risk having the battery confiscated on the spot. The watt-hour rating is what determines how much battery you're allowed to bring at all, and it's printed right on the device. Look for whatever work on the label. Anything rated 100 watt-hours or under, which covers nearly every phone battery, laptop battery, and consumer power bank on the market, travels freely in reasonable personal quantities. Step up into the 101 to 160 watt-hour range, large aftermarket laptop batteries, some professional camera equipment, and you're capped at 2 spares, and only with your airline's advance approval. Anything north of 160 watt-hours is generally banned from passenger aircraft entirely. Full stop. Here's what's new for mid-2026. Several major carriers have started tightening the power bank rule beyond the federal floor. Some airlines now cap passengers at 2 power banks each, require those power banks to stay under 100 watt-hours, and insist they remain accessible in your seat area rather than buried in an overhead bin where a crew member couldn't reach one quickly if it started to overheat. A growing list of international carriers, following updated guidance from the Global Airline Trade Association at the start of 2026, now prohibit charging a device from a power bank plugged into the seat's USB port, and some have banned power bank use in flight altogether. None of this is universal yet, which is exactly why a 30-second check of your specific carrier's website beats assuming last year's rule still applies. Smart luggage runs into its own version of this problem. If your suitcase has a built-in battery for charging your phone or tracking its location, airlines want that battery removable, full stop. You should be able to unzip a panel, pop the battery free, and hold it in your hand in a few seconds, the same way you'd pull your passport out of a jacket pocket. If the battery is sealed into the frame and can't come out without tools, plenty of airlines will simply decline to check that bag at all. A practical habit fixes almost all of this. Before you zip your suitcase shut, flip every battery-powered item over, find the watt-hour number, and decide right then whether it's a carry-on only item. Charge your devices enough that they can actually power on if an officer asks. A phone or laptop that won't turn on at all can raise enough suspicion to get pulled aside for extra screening. Cordless hair tools, the item nobody expects to lose. This one catches people off guard because it doesn't feel dangerous. A curling iron, a flat iron, a cordless straightener, these feel like the most harmless objects you could pack. But the moment one of them is cordless and runs on a lithium battery or a butane cartridge, it falls under the same fire risk category as your laptop battery, and it has to live in your carry-on, never in a checked bag. If your styling tool plugs into the wall, none of this applies. Corded tools are unrestricted and can go in either bag. The trouble starts with cordless rechargeable versions that charge over USB-C and run 30 or 60 minutes on a built-in battery, or older gas and butane models some travelers still swear by for trips without reliable outlets. Both categories are carry-on only, and both require a safety cover fitted snugly over the heating element so the tool can't switch on accidentally while it's bouncing around in your bag. Spare gas cartridges for butane-powered tools don't get any pass at all, banned from both carry-on and checked luggage. No exceptions, so the cartridge already loaded inside your tool is the only one flying with you. And while there's no official numeric cap on how many cordless hair tools one traveler can bring, showing up with 3 or 4 is a great way to invite a longer conversation with a security officer, so packing the one you'll actually use keeps things simple. The ID wrinkle nobody's carry-on checklist mentions. This script is about bags, but one 2026 specific change deserves a quick mention because it can stop your trip before your carry-on ever matters. Real ID enforcement at security checkpoints has been fully active since mid-2025, meaning a standard non-compliant driver's license alone won't get you past the checkpoint on a domestic flight. You need a Real ID compliant license, a passport, or another accepted form of identification. New this year, TSA rolled out a backup option for travelers who show up without acceptable ID. A paid identity verification process, currently priced at $45, that lets you confirm your identity through an alternative process and still make a short travel window of flights. It's a useful safety net if you've genuinely forgotten your wallet, but it's not cheap enough to treat as a backup plan on purpose, and it's no substitute for checking your ID before you leave the house. Winning the overhead bin without becoming that passenger. Even a bag that passes every single rule above can still end up in the cargo hold for one simple reason. The bin above your row filled up before you got there. Airlines keep selling more seats per flight, boarding groups keep getting more granular, and the passengers seated near the back of the plane are increasingly the ones staring at a wall of bins with handles sticking out of every gap. You can't control how many other passengers bring oversized bags, but you can control your own habits. Be physically at the gate, paying attention when your boarding group is called instead of finishing a coffee 20 feet away. those extra 90 seconds are often the difference between bin space and a gate tag. If you're traveling with a companion, share one carry-on between you, instead of each dragging a maxed-out roller bag onto the plane. One shared bag and two well-packed personal items take up far less overhead space than two full-size suitcases competing for the same 6 cubic feet. And circle back to the personal item strategy from earlier, because it matters most right here. If your roller bag gets pulled for a forced gate check simply because the bins are full, the only thing that protects you is having already moved your passport, medication, laptop, and charger into the bag that stays under your seat. A gate check stops being a crisis the moment it stops involving anything you can't survive a flight without. Bringing it all together. Strip away all the specifics in 2026's carry-on landscape really comes down to 3 habits. Measure your bag fully packed, including the wheels and handles, against your specific airline's numbers, rather than the sticker that came with the suitcase. Keep every battery, power banks, spare camera batteries, cordless hair tools, exactly where the rules want it, in the cabin, charged enough to prove what it is, with the right approval, if it's a larger one. And pack your liquids like the strictest lane is always waiting for you, because somewhere on your itinerary, it probably is. None of this requires a different bag or a complicated new system. It requires 5 minutes with a tape measure and a battery label before you ever zip the suitcase shut. Do that, and the gate sizer, the CT scanner, and the overhead bin scramble stop being threats and start being things you've already planned around, which is really the entire difference between a smooth trip and a public repack on the jet bridge floor.